Hi everyone. Today I'm speaking about common things between fighting hackers and air combat. My name is Alexey Lukatsky. I've been working for cybersecurity 30 plus years. Now I'm managing director and cybersecurity trusted advisor for Positive Technologies, which secures the Olympic Games, World Cup, president's elections, and big public and private federal and other companies and enterprises around the world. And our company develops different types of cybersecurity products in detection and response area, and also we offer some cybersecurity services: threat hunting, pen testing, red teaming, cyber ranges, cyber evaluations, bug bounty, and so on. Today I'm speaking about something common between air combat and fighting hackers. And I would start with imagination. Imagine that you are a pilot and you was elected as a cybersecurity guy, and you need to build cybersecurity procedure for your organization, for your company. You have only experience in air forces, and main question: can you use your experience in cyberspace? And I would say that, of course, you can, because even the Air Force faces cyber attacks. And in the digital age, every military structure, Navy, Air Forces, Army, and so on, faces new threats, especially in cyberspace, because modern air forces and some other kind of military organization use digital transformation, use some information systems for their activities. And of course, cyber attacks target ground systems, aircraft flight control systems, weapons systems, defense contractors, and some other models, segments, systems, applications which support some Air Force activities. And today I'm not speaking about real cases with breaches and attacks in air forces or against air forces around the world. Our company has a big incident database with some records about cases against military organizations. On this slide you can see some cases against air forces which were attacked by different kind of hackers, activists, state actors, some APTs groups, and in some cases by script kiddies. Today I'm speaking about something else. And as I mentioned earlier, air forces faced with some attacks, and the attacker or hacker in cyber world looks for weaknesses in some systems. The same story in airspace when pilot or defender builds protection against some enemies, some firefighters, some other planes and weapon systems. And just like a pilot seeks tactical advantage while the opponent tries to disrupt it. And the same story in cybersecurity. You, as a defender, tries to protect your information systems, your applications, your websites, and so on. And some threat actors, cyber threat actors, tries to avoid your defense systems, your cybersecurity systems, and disrupt your infrastructure, leak some information, intercept of management of your flight control systems, and so on. And victory goes to the faster and more experienced one. It can be hacker, it can be defender, it can be your pilot, it can be pilot of your enemies, your opposite sides. And one thing which different in Air Force and cyberspace is speed. Speed is everything. Modern cyber attacks evolve very rapidly, and defense, cyber defense, but I think in air combat the same story, and defense requires fast and precise response. Just like in real air combat, where a split second can decide everything, and you can win air combat, and of course you can lose your air combat if you not so rapid as your enemy, and you make a bad decision which lead to some catastrophes or some other non-tolerable, unacceptable events. What makes cybersecurity different from aerial combat? As I mentioned earlier, it's speed. Cyber attack happening every 39 seconds. On average, of course, and in different industries and different companies, this number can be changed, but on average, cyber attack happening every 39 seconds. Nearly 4,000 new cyber attacks occur every day. Every 14 seconds, a company falls victim to a ransomware attacks. And about 500,000 new pieces of malware are detected every day. It's a number and figures especially for 2024-2025 years. I think in nearest future these numbers can be changed, and we will face with more attacks, and they are happening more rapidly than nowadays. And in air combat, usually some air forces in different countries use very interesting concept, OODA loop, which was developed and invented by Colonel John Boyd from United States Air Force. And this approach, this framework, OODA, helps the military understand why battles in Air Force and too are won or lost. OODA is acronym which means 4 steps of this loop or this cycle. First step is observe. We are watching the adversary. Next step is orient. We should assess the current situation in airspace, if we speak about air forces. Third step is decide. We are making a tactical decision based on assessing the situation and watching the adversary which fly around us. And last but not least step is act, or taking immediate action based on making decision which we made on previous step. And key feature of OODA loop is orient. It's most difficult part of the loop because the pilot should assess many factors are considered, from the pilot's experience to the environment to the weather to telemetry from different sensors and systems of firefighter and so on. And the ability to cycle through the loop faster than the adversary gives a decisive advantage in a battle. And it means that we need to very quick to decide and to analyze some information and big amount of information which we have from different sides of air combat, from firefighters, from environment, from ground systems, from something else. And of course, OODA loop can be implemented in cybersecurity, and many companies, especially in military field, use OODA approach in cybersecurity because this loop helps build a dynamic approach to cybersecurity and incident response. I wouldn't say that OODA loop can exchange any other framework and approaches in cybersecurity. But for example, NIST cybersecurity framework or ISO 27000 or something else, these approaches can be used for building cybersecurity systems. But in real life, we are building the systems only once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times during our life cycle. But from routines, daily routines, we cannot use NIST cybersecurity framework or ISO 27K series and so on. We need to use something else, some more operative, more tactical, and more quicker approach for fighting against incidents. And OODA loop is maybe not best, but very good choice in this area. And the core idea of OODA in cybersecurity means that act faster and more flexibly than the attacker, and constantly adapting to changing conditions, because in cyberspace we face with more dynamic and with more agile situation, and cyber attacks, some technologies, some events which occur in cyberspace are more volatile than in airspace, for example, or maybe in physical space. And it means that OODA loop can be very effective in cyber security if we will use it right way. And now I would like to compare OODA loop in Air Force and in the cybersecurity. First step, as I mentioned earlier, is observe. In the Air Force, the pilot gathers visual data, instrument readings, radio intercepts, weather conditions, and some other information from different sources. In cybersecurity, we see the same story. The Security Operations Center monitor different sources: logs, network traffic, attack signatures, vulnerability data, application data, cloud information, and so on. And the TIP, the Threat Intelligence Platform, gather indicators of compromise, APT groups, profiles, and more from different sources too. And we collect this kind of information and use for next step for orient. In the Air Force, the pilot considers aircraft positions, enemy capabilities, fuel level, radar's data, electronic warfare information, weather conditions, as I mentioned, and so on. In cybersecurity, incident analyst should analyze vulnerability which was used during the attack. What type of attack? Which network segments are exposed, or which business critical applications are exposed or are targeted by hackers? What is hackers' attribution and hypothesis generation about source of some attacks and some origin of threat actors. And it's very critical to quickly understand who is attacking and which parts of the system are at risk. Next step is deciding. We should to decide our action which based on information which we gathered on previous step. In the Air Force, the pilot chooses a maneuver which he or she have to make based on getting information on previous step. In cybersecurity, we also have to decide will we block the IP or isolate part of the infrastructure or deploy a patch to some vulnerable systems with some weaknesses, or freeze and compromised account, or notify leadership about very important or maybe very catastrophic consequences of some cyber incident. And main question in cybersecurity, what matters more, maintaining business continuity or immediately stopping all suspicious activity? And also we should decide these questions, maybe myself, maybe with help of our management, maybe with help of some cybersecurity committee which collect all needed information and decide some important decisions in business area when some actions can lead to catastrophic consequences from business perspective. And final step of OODA loop is acting. In the Air Force, the pilot immediately executes the maneuver, fires missiles, deploy countermeasures, and so on. In cybersecurity, we do the same. We apply updates, contain compromised devices, cure files with antiviruses, change access control list on firewalls, on routers or switches, switch to a backup channel to next ISP, send documents to a sandbox for additional checking and evaluation, or update security policies, and so on. And as I mentioned earlier, and as you understand from name of this approach, OODA loop is a cycle. In both the sky and the network, every action changes the situation, and the loop begins again and again and again and again. And victory depends on one of two factors. Who completes the loop faster or makes better decisions during OODA loop which implemented in the sky or in the cyber field. And two cases from our experience from some projects of positive technologies. Case number one, which we observed in one Ministry of Defense, one country, which we secure internal network of Ministry of Defense uses our PT NAT solution. It's a solution for network attack discovery, monitoring, and so on. It's NDR, network detection and response solution. And network traffic monitoring is observe step in OODA loop. On second step, we detect early ransomware indicators. For example, C2 communications attempts, scanning for new targets in internal network, and so on. Its second step is orient. Third step, decide. We need to decide, for example, to isolate compromised nodes, hosts, segments in internal network. And it means that we can isolate or block spreading ransomware into internal network of Ministry of Defense. And last but not least step is acting when we collect evidence and node isolation using some our solutions, for example, PT next generation firewall, or we are using some embedded features into network infrastructure or into some servers, some applications, some operation systems, and so on, which can help us to gather and collect some proofs of ransomware attacks and some threat actors acts and events which on some next steps can be proofs for internal investigation or maybe for external investigations which will be made by some police or special forces and so on. Case number two, aircraft flight control hack. In one air forces which we secure, also we use network traffic monitoring with PTNet, and also we secure aircraft control system server with EDR solution and endpoint detection and response. On next step, on orient phase of OODA loop, we detect one vulnerability, very high critical vulnerability, and how some malware or some hackers exploit this vulnerability for getting some privileges, for getting more access into internal network, or for getting additional permissions for access to some applications or some data which keep on server of ACFS systems. On third step, we made decision to isolate compromised nodes and initiate external scanning for getting information about unpatched vulnerabilities on external servers which face to internet. And on the final stage of OODA loop, we implement made decision, and we block the attack using Max Patrol EDR solution, and especially for external scanning, we use MPVM solution, which was launched for getting information about new vulnerabilities, which can be used by hackers for intrusion into network of Air Force. Of course, OODA loop isn't a silver bullet in cybersecurity and in air combat too. And as I mentioned early, effectiveness of using this approach depends on many factors, including skills, including timing, including some other factors, and incorrect interpretation of some signals which we gather from different telemetry sources, from infrastructure sources, and so on, can lead to catastrophic consequences, such as the loss of an aircraft, or data breach, or financial theft, or something else. And as I mentioned earlier, again, second step in OODA loop, I mean orient step, is more critical in this approach, in this cycle. If we cannot effectively analyze information from first step, from observe, if we cannot effectively using information which we had got from some logs, network traffic, applications, clouds, OT solutions, and so on, it means that we cannot effectively decide and act on this information. Let me remind about some facts and figures which I mentioned early, and cyber attacks happening every 39 seconds on average. I think you remember this fact, and in airspace we see maybe not quicker and maybe not the same amount of new enemies, new firefighters, new airplanes, new missiles, and so on. But anyway, one pilot, maybe 2-3 pilots anyway, cannot manage increasing amount of threats, of enemies, of missiles, on cyber attacks and incidents. And of course, any air forces think and wishes to have pilotless aircraft and pilotless air forces. And I would say that it's future of aviation. And the same story we see in cybersecurity. We also want to have a co-pilot or autopilot in cybersecurity. And in some cases, we have it. Now some companies and positive technologies too develop some solutions based on using of artificial intelligence, on machine learning, for detecting and for responding on some cyber attacks, some cyber incident, for gather information about atomic events and collecting them to attack chains, And it means that we can more effectively detect and respond on some cyber attacks without without people, based only on automatic decision and automatic acting against some attacks. And you can see one example from one of our projects where we use some our technologies, including our solution, which based on machine learning and which realized some autopilot feature for fighting hackers. And I would say it's the same idea which we see in some air forces and in some other fields and areas of modern world, where some companies invent and develop some autopilot solutions and devices and vehicles and so on. And the same story in cybersecurity too. What about final thoughts? I would say that digital attacks are modern day dogfights, just in a different domain, not in airspace, but in cyberspace. And understanding the OODA loop approach, which was developed by Colonel John Boyd from US Air Forces, gives you an edge in response. And military and government institutions, such as businesses, enterprises, SMB companies, and so on, increasingly rely on networks and applications and digital systems and some other digital transformation projects. And without proper protection, without proper security, a cyber breach can be as critical as a kinetic strike, with the same catastrophic consequences. And as I mentioned earlier, our internal PT database contain enough cases of some incidents, some breaches, some cyber attacks with catastrophic consequences with different nature: monetary losses, disruption of services, deaths, ecological disasters, and so on. And our company is ready to share our expertise with you. And for starting or as a call to action, we recommend to focus on three main steps which can be helpful for implementing the OODA loop in your infrastructure. First of all, we need to build a monitoring systems. Just like a fighter pilot relies on instrument and sensor, cybersecurity teams need an advanced security operations center and threat detection tools: EDR, NDR, CEM, web application firewalls, next generation firewalls, antiviruses, vulnerability managers, TIP platforms, and so on. Next one is regular trainings, because as I mentioned earlier, one of two success factors for winning in the aircraft or in the cyberspace battle is qualified skills and more effective decisions than enemies. And in aircraft, pilots used flight simulators. In cybersecurity, cybersecurity teams can use cyber ranges and some other kind of test environments for getting new knowledge and skills for fighting against some cyber threats, cyber actors, incidents, and so on. And final thought that we need to implement post-incident analysis. Debriefing combat missions and reviewing cyber attacks, same principle. Learn from mistakes and improve processes, because without this step, we cannot effectively manage new attacks, new cyber threats, new cyber actors, and so on. Thank you, guys. I think my presentation was helpful, and you got not only new information, but and new ideas for improving of your cyber security state. Thank you.